welcome to another episode of the InfoTech Growth Partner Podcast, the podcast where the future of IT unfolds and we dive deep into the pertinent developments in regards to IT and data with leaders and experts within the IT consulting field. My name is Jasper and today I have the distinct pleasure to have Avi Perez from Pyramid Analytics on the show. Avi is the co-founder and CTO of Pyramid Analytics, and it's a great honor to have you on, Avi. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Jasper. It's very nice to be here today and to join you on your show.
Awesome. Can you give us and can you give the audience a quick introduction in your background, what you do at Pyramid Analytics, and what the unique value proposition is that you have at Pyramid Analytics, which is very unique in the market, in my opinion.
So, first of all, my background, I've been in the analytics BI space for now almost shockingly 30 years. Makes me sound super old. I never thought I would say that aloud. But I come originally from a banking and finance background. And in the 90s, when we struggled doing data analysis and whatnot in that banking space, I found myself playing with tools that were supposed to make it easier. And this is how I got into the space at the start. And after I finished in Australia, I went to study in the US. And out of the US, just when the dot-com bubble had burst in around the 2000, 2001 time zone, myself and the third founder of Pyramid, Herbert Ochman, decided to take some of the ideas that I had worked on in Australia and build a company around it for healthcare business intelligence. And believe it or not, that was running with subscription in the cloud, technically what you would call SaaS, three terms that didn't exist in 2001. We always look back and laugh because it's unbelievable how far ahead we were. And we bootstrapped that company. We sold it around 2006 to one of Warren Buffett's many satellite operations. And out of the difficulties in implementing that solution, which was basically what we call the data factory engine, so taking data from not necessarily a raw state, from a very dirty state, fixing it up, embellishing it with machine learning and very smart analytical insights, and then giving it back to the users through a web browser. That's 2001 already, we were doing that. The difficulty in getting that solution to work is where Pyramid comes from. And then Herbert and I, when we reinvented the whole concept again, we joined forces with Omri Cole, the third co-founder of Pyramid. And this is where it comes to life in the technical solution to the problems that we had in that original business. Amazingly, over all this time, I would tell you that the problems that we had in those days are identical to the ones we have today. In fact, maybe things got more complicated because data got completely out of control. People suddenly realized there's tremendous value in the data, which is fairly obvious. Now, back in the day, only data-centric organizations wasted time and energy on this. Is the word wasted. You had to be banking, finance, healthcare, government. Today, everyone understands that there's tremendous value in data, and if they can work out how to use it, synergize with it, do things with it, they can actually change themselves dramatically. Either become more competitive, become more profitable, become more efficient. All the things that every organization wants to do. So things have definitely moved a long way from those days, but the original concept is still the same idea. Nothing has dramatically changed in the principal concept from that era. And this is where Pyramid comes in. So Pyramid, again, designed to complete and fix the problems in that stack. If you think about it from the very top, raw data, a place to fix your data, to inject data science, machine learning into it, then do analysis, and then play what I call the movie back to end users and hand it back to them in a way that they can play with it. Pyramid's proposition then is doing that entire arc in one single piece of software. If you think about it today, most Organizations will use 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of software to get that entire chain of events sorted out. To do it in a way that is super business user-centric, so mainly no-code point and click, and yet still keep a tremendous degree of sophistication. So we're not that interested in doing easy things easily. We're interested in doing sophisticated things easily. And that kind of raises the bar dramatically. Like, it's one of Einstein's famous quotes, anybody can make something simple, but it takes a touch of genius to take something complicated and make it simple. And I love that quote because that's exactly the problem I think everybody faces in enterprise software in general. But in analytics and business intelligence, it's very, very obvious that that's an absolute requirement. And the last thing that kind of makes us super differentiated and interesting, and it sounds like a detail, but if you look carefully enough in the space, you'll see that it really matters a lot. His pyramid was built around the idea of pure direct querying. There is never a situation where we copy the data or cache the data or ingest it first to do something. Now, again, it sounds like a detail, but behind that, we drive tremendous differentiation. So, I'll give you a few examples. First of all, there's no issue of scaling of data, because wherever the data lives, that's where it's going to run. So, if you can put 10 petabytes of data into Snowflake and it runs well for you, then Pyramid floats on top of it, you wouldn't even know we're there. So suddenly we're a 10 petabyte solution. You can also drop 100 million rows into an in-memory database, pyramids or not pyramids in-memory database, and will work exactly the same. So direct query is the secret sauce, and it became all the more important in the era that we're in now because the data went crazy. It's metastasized. Everyone's collecting gobs of information, storing in the data lake, and now the question is, well, how do I get it out? And I always like to tell people there's no point in storing it if you're not going to use it. So those are the principles behind Pyramid and the idea of the data factory, and that's where it comes from.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. And this is definitely something that stands out in, well, of course, there's a lot of BI-related, analytics-related solutions out there in the market.
Yep.
Most known, of course, is Power BI from Microsoft and those types of companies. And I think you clearly stand out in that with all of the value propositions and the things that you just shared. But I think maybe the awareness in the market is not there yet, especially for your solutions. Of course,
Right.
The first go-to company is probably Microsoft, because that's what most people know of.
Mm-hmm.
What are you trying to do to raise that awareness for your solution and getting into new markets and actually showing that you're sort of the best kept secret and better than those big behemoths as Microsoft?
So it's, first of all your points are brutally correct, unfortunately, but they're absolutely correct. Where our biggest headache is awareness and frankly branding, because it's very hard to get a message out there. We're not just competing against another 100 companies or 200 companies. We're competing against the biggest tech companies in the world. So it's like the double whammy. And it is very, very difficult. Brutally, this is probably our single biggest challenge. The funny thing is that from a product perspective, it's very easy to compete against them. We offer something profoundly stronger, more sophisticated, like I said, and it's easy to see it and demonstrate it. And you'll know it as a customer when you need it. If you don't need something advanced and clever and you're just trying to draw a very basic bar chart, well, there's plenty of tools in the market that do it. And so you're not really going to go fishing for something profound and deep and interesting. Then when you need a high-scale solution that does something really deep and advanced, then you're going to be wanting on many tools. Power BI is a good example. By Microsoft's own admission, they never attempt to achieve 100% functionality in their space, or figurative functionality, and I've heard it from the horse's mouth, by the way. They always shoot for like 70 to 80%, and that's good enough. And then they let their sales and marketing engine carry them over the line. And it kind of works for them if you think about it. Most people who know software well will always tell you Microsoft stuff is good, but it's never the best. And that's very, very true for Power BI specifically. So first things first is Pyramid because of that, actually relies on the fact that its product is going to be functionally stronger. So that when we do get a chance to show it to a customer, if we go into the weeds of the product and the depth of functionality, there's never a question of who's got the better solution. So at least we're going to win when we do get an opportunity to show up and talk. In terms of getting around the noise issue, well, it's always a problem, right? It takes hundreds of millions, I'm going to say even billions of dollars to compete in the marketing space of these big behemoth organizations. And that's something that certainly we're not going to be able to solve tomorrow. What we can do is make pointed representations in key locations. For example, on this podcast, talking to real people who themselves talk to real people, real customers who are looking for real solutions. And we cut through the noise because in the end, those folks are not interested in the next glitzy, video appearing on YouTube or on, the Super Bowl. That's not interesting to them because they kind of understand it's not the real thing. And they've seen the glitzy demos and they're still like, it doesn't really work. So from that perspective, our side of the fence is to go more grassroots marketing, more real world, talking to people, showing them the real thing. And ultimately, if we do get a chance to show up and show our wares, we are fairly confident we can show a differentiation. I mean, our strike rate against Power BI, if we do have a matchup, is north of 8 out of 10 competitions will beat them. So 8 out of 10 times in a technical showdown between Pyramid and Power BI. And this, by the way, extends to Tableau and Click as well. There's probably our 3 biggest competitors in functional competitors in terms of real world deals. We'll beat them more than 8 out of 10 times. So that's the technology speaking. The marketing and sales is a completely different headache. And like I said, that's what we're here to, we're using these opportunities to get the message out there. Obviously, the last place that is kind of important is showing up in the analyst reviews. For that, there's no doubt that Gartner is the most important. People would be surprised to know that we've been in Gartner for a long time, but it's taken us time to move up their pathway, what they call the snake, as you move between the quadrants. We're a visionary solution, which is itself a small leap to take out of the other niche space. But what people don't know is that Gartner's MQ, the Magic Quadrant, is also married with a sister report called the Critical Capabilities Report. So the MQ is actually a statement of the company. Like, where does the company live compared to the others? And clearly we're nobody compared to the likes of Microsoft, Oracle, SAP, IBM, Google, Alibaba, AWS. They're all in the same quadrant, by the way. And there's this little pyramid. So we're not any of those. But when you look at the Critical Capabilities Report, and if you've never seen it, please come to our website. We offer a free download. You can click through, we'll send it to you free of charge. You will see a ranking of the product. So not the company, the product. And the shocking revelation in that is we're easily the number one solution according to Gartner. So they look at it on multiple planes. The 4 that they focus on the most is what's called business analyst, augmented consumer, which is basically AI-driven analytics. The 3rd one is around data science and machine learning, and the 4th one is what I think they call advanced developer. I hope I got all those terms exactly correct. We're number 1 in business analyst usage and AI-driven analytics, which is unbelievable, right? Where's Microsoft and Copilot in that story? It just shows you, right, if you look carefully, we're way ahead of these guys, and we've been doing it for a long time. It's not something we did last year when we dropped $10 billion into the pockets of, OpenAI and whatnot. So on those 2, we're number 2, by the way, in the data science space, and number 4 in the advanced developer. That's about out of 20 companies in each stack. And if you took a sort of an averaging score across everything, we're easily number 1. So it's, in other words, we can beat these guys even though we're smaller. And it just shows you that the right software built by the right people who understand the space well can actually outdo any amount of money you pour into the problem. And then we just come back to your primary question. We just got to get the message out there, which brings us to our podcast today. One of the ways we're trying to do it.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, thanks for sharing, and we'll take the opportunity in a bit to also showcase a bit of the platform already, to actually
Yep.
showcase those functionalities that you were talking about. Um, we've now talked about the competitive landscape, of course, navigating through that in between all of the big behemoths that are out there.
Hmm.
Um, Let us take us a bit more into your, let's say, your end customers. Most companies understand that they need to do something related to business intelligence. They think, well, let me just create a chart, let me just try something and see if I can get an insight. What is it from your perspective that companies should take into account whenever they actually want to drive real business value from BI related topics and services?
So the first thing to realize is that um, all products in this space go through the same motions. We're going to point at data, we might model it a little bit, and then give it to end users so they can basically play with it and visualize it. And the focus for at least the last decade, maybe even 15 years, has been on visualization. Like, wow, look, I can draw this in a pie chart, and therefore I can see my numbers. And the full process has been, if I can see the numbers, then I can clearly derive some kind of insight to which I will make a better decision. That's the thought process. The problem is that way too much focus on visualization and how sexy it looks, rather than, well, is the number going to tell you something tremendously useful, and is it answering the question? And so the first thing that we focus on in Pyramid is looking through that particular storyline to what is really needed, and therefore what companies are really dying to get their hands on. And vicariously that dictates how the product is designed, and also how customers should think about implementing Pyramid. And from that we derive more interesting success stories. So they're all connected, those three different tangents. So I'll give you an example. Um, we have a customer, who will remain nameless, that pulls in the data from their manufacturing assembly lines. It goes through a machine learning algorithm to predict um, which machines are going to potentially have a problem, or if they're going to run out of capacity. That is then pumped into their data store, from which they then drive classic visual analytic capabilities. But that's not that interesting to them. What they much prefer is the idea that it actually drives some kind of triggering motion that will punch out an alert to the manager or to the customer, whoever it is that's on the end of that, to say, hey, we've got a problem on machine number 12. It might even send a message to the supplier and say, hey, please send us, a replacement for this machine, because we expect it to die in the next, 24 hours. So this is a much better example of analytics doing real work for you, what we would call operational analytics, or actionable analytics as it used to be called. And the reason it matters is because at the end of the day, I think people look at pie charts because it's the easy thing to look at, but actually no one wants to look at the pie chart. You wouldn't look at the pie chart if you just knew that that's the solution of what you should do tomorrow, and it did it for you automatically. If you think about it, it's really what we all want. It's kind of like getting into a car and typing in the destination. So it's all very good that they show you the map of where you're going to go, but frankly, no one really cares about the map per se. You just get me there and tell me the instructions, and if we can go one step further and the car can drive itself, all the better. I don't even want to drive the car. I don't want to look at the map. I don't care what your story is. I'm going to sit in the seat, click the button, and poof, I'm going to go. That's Eureka for the self-driving car business, and you can imagine that's Eureka for the self-driving business, if there's such a thing. So I'm the CEO of the company. I don't really care about all the clever pie charts and what you did. Just tell me what I need to do tomorrow to make my company more successful organization. So that's the ultimate goal. That's what Pyramid works towards, and those are the kinds of solutions we implement. The pie charts are there because everybody expects them. But the sophistication that we're talking to here is at a much, much deeper level, and what we're trying to build out is a much, much stronger storyline. And it starts even before we get into the visualization. So just getting data corrected itself is a headache, which everybody knows. But that's not something that is easily scalable. It's also very technical and complicated. So all of that glues together, and that's how we get the pyramid story. So I'd like to call it operational impacts, but we officially call it decision intelligence because it's about making a decision and not about learning something about your business. Like, just tell me what I should do is the eureka point rather than tell me what happened. And those are the kinds of things we do. In terms of our customers, again, we gravitate to the sophisticated use cases, really big scalable problems, and that's where the issues are that we need to solve. And that's basically what our customers look for.
Exactly. And can you tell us a bit more about some of the success stories? Like, you've already shared an example of the assembly line, but just some examples of businesses that you work with. Of course, you don't have to name them, but at least give us a perspective on what are those specific sophisticated use cases, those complicated things, and what is it that you actually do there? Let's say it like that.
So I think it's a very good question to try and pick to go after, and I'm trying to see if I can find a slide here. It's going to be a bit difficult to find here on the fly, but I'll do it in the air. I'll give you a few use cases that would resonate. So one example, again, is the IT management company that manages equipment for other companies, who manages their servers for them, and monitoring the servers, their health, and predicting capacity problems, running it through the machine learning, telling if there's a problem, and then sending a message both to the manager, which is the customer, and also to the supplier to fix it. That's one use case. Very sophisticated pipeline, and it was built in a matter of hours in Pyramid. So while it seems rather narrow, the sophistication in that entire pipeline is quite unbelievable when you think about it. Another example that is worth mentioning is a retail organization, a manufacturer retail organization that happens to be sitting on, as usual, gobs of data in 5 different locations. Some of it is coming out of the ERP solution, typically SAP. Some of it might be coming from the operational data warehouse. In this case, it's sitting something like Oracle. They've got some legacy analytics that they've built in Microsoft over the years, and they're trying to run their organization. Now, this sounds a little bit monotonous, but it's a very, very real problem. They've got stores all over the world. Their board sits centrally in the GMT time zone. They've got to manage everything. And the problem that they have, or originally had, was, retail, especially fashion, used to be something that changed seasonally, and now it changes every 2 weeks. And they've got to move on things much, much faster than, merely reacting once every 3 months to 6 months. So their problem was taking all those data points, centralizing them analytically, and then doing cross-mathematical calculations across all 3 of them without ever moving the data, because they can't move the data. They can't dispense with the ERP solution. The operational data system is too big to lift and shift to a data lake, and their legacy stuff in Microsoft is, again, as usual, no one wants to fix it. It works, but we only wish it would do something more interesting. So they took all of that, blended into a very, very tight, singular, literally tiny grid about that big on a digital dashboard, which the board runs around on with either their phone or their tablets, and they run the company from that thing. And it's a huge company, by the way. I think it is something like 100,000 employees. So, in other words, they were able to whittle down the complexity of their problem by looking at the key data metrics coming from all these systems, getting it blended in one place, and that's it. And the key part here that makes it interesting is the data is live, because the hydration, as I said, has to be up to, I wouldn't say up to the minute, but certainly up to maybe the hour, because their business is moving at such a speed. It's a complicated problem to solve. It sounds relatively easy. It sounds like just another grid with another read of data and another query, but actually getting all of those components to work and not spending a decade developing it, and then functionally being able to hand it to non-technical board members, no less, right? It's not even the executive, the board member. Tremendous challenge. And then having it work in the hands of every store owner across, I think it's 3 continents, thousands of users, is the second part of that story. So both the executives and, let's say, let's say distributed management, for want of a better term, all use the same platform to get up to the hour, I believe, data analysis and metrics, and they're able to change the way their stores are designed at that speed. They're one of the most successful companies in their market because of the analysis. They'll tell you that everyone can make the same dress or the same shoes or the same bags or whatever it is they do, and they do lots of things. I'm simplifying to fashion, but there's many things they do. The trick is to know what to bring out, when, what price to put it at, and to take what's working and amplify it, and take what's not working and remove it. That's the trick in retail in the current world we live in. And I'm not an expert on it, but that's what how it's been explained to me. So the data is pivotal in that process, and without getting that kind of real-time speed in a global sense, it would not work for them. And this is after they've tried every other product in the market trying to glue that, sticky tape and chewing gum sandwich together. It's a mess. That's where we resonate. So there you go, 2 little vignettes for you
Awesome.
to digest.
Awesome. Very interesting, and it definitely shows as you said, the business value that you're trying to derive out of it. It's not just about the charts. It's not just about the graphs or whatever. It's about what can you actually do with it, and especially in those sophisticated.
Yeah, the visuals are they're commodities these days. Everyone can do a visual. I mean, you can do a pie chart in Excel. Why go to all the trouble of using these advanced solutions if you need a pie chart? It's got to be more than that. And even if you do show a pie chart, what you're showing it has to be something truly clever and insightful. Or it has to be the segue to something truly clever and insightful. It can't be just the obvious. I always tell people, if you did a pie chart to show your top 5 customers, you've actually done nothing, because you already know who your top 5 customers are. You knew them. Everybody knows them because they're so important to the organization. You would not know. I think the better question is, who are my bottom 5 customers and what's wrong with them? Why don't I know what's wrong with them, and what do I do to fix them? Now we're getting a little bit more interesting. Now I've got to go and fish for resolution, or fish for ideas. And that's where the whole idea of decision intelligence kicks in, because I can't just go with a simple pie chart. I've got to ask why. And the why is very, very difficult to solve in the real world. It's not so easy. And again, that's where the differentiation between the solutions will show up the best. It's the easiest way to see it.
Exactly. And let's dive into, of course, everyone is pretty hyped about generative AI. All companies is trying some things with it.
Yes.
You at Pyramid actually created sort of the concept of generative BI, so generative business intelligence, to empower that decision intelligence. Can you tell us a bit more about that, and maybe after that lead us into the actual demo to showcase the platform itself as well?
Yes, sure. So, like I said earlier, we've been in the AI space for a long time. I think the whole analytics industry lends itself very well to AI, and it's been like that we've been dealing with this for 20 years in some shape or form. It's progressed tremendously, maybe in the last 5 years, and certainly with the whole Gen AI era with large language models in the last 12 to 18 months, it's really coming to the next. It's coming to its own, and the next era is upon us. And that's where we come up with the era of generative BI, which is basically the idea of taking, the Gen AI and large language models, that is the flavor of the day, but also all the other AI aspects that have been in the industry for a long time, and in Pyramid, for example, for years, and bottle it all up into a framework that allows end users to access tremendously powerful functionality through incredibly simple, intuitive interfaces. Now, I'll show you in a second, the chatbot experience for creating content or interrogating content. But we have got AI throughout the platform on every aspect of it, anywhere from the data preparation and data modeling experiences, all the way through to, for example, AI tools for suggesting what is the best machine learning model that you should apply, which I know people have heard of AutoML, but there's a subtle difference between AutoML and AI-driven sort of suggestions in the DSML space. So there's lots and lots of aspects to it. Pyramid some of it is obvious, like you can see it. Some of it is hidden, hidden in the sense that it's there, but you wouldn't know you're using it. Suggestions on how to draw a visual, automated visualizations. It doesn't sound like AI, but it really is. Somebody has thought of a way to draw your data without you telling it how to do it, and it just comes up with an answer. And for us, generative BI is basically bottling all of that under one banner and explaining to the world that AI in our space is one of the leading capabilities. For Pyramid in particular, it's one of our most powerful weapons. Like I said, I think it's now 2 years in a row that Gartner's ranked us number one for what they call augmented analytics, which is basically AI-driven analytics. A shocking statement. I think most people would be surprised to hear that, because the obvious choices are, Google's not there and Microsoft is not there. And yeah, actually they're not. They rank lower than we do. And again, it's because we're very, very focused on delivering sophisticated AI. That's the key here, sophisticated AI, but done simply. Remember, anyone can do the basics. The clever stuff is, can we do the advanced things? And then people will see value. And I think the generative AI large language era that I was speaking about is profound. It's probably the biggest leap I've seen in the space in easily 20 years. And what I'm about to show you now is a quick little vignette using the large language model framework. But we're not done. Pyramid is not done. I think the industry is done. I think you're going to see a huge leap in the next, say, 12 months as we sort of clear out some of the biggest headaches in analytics that still exist, even though the larger language models are here. They don't solve everything. I think a lot of people are surprised to understand that the LLMs don't actually do math particularly well, and they therefore don't do analytics particularly well. So we want to use the LLM for what it's good at, which is called building the recipe. But in the end, you need an engine like Pyramid underneath it to solve the analytical problems. And that's where the Gen BI story comes in. It's gluing all of that together in a nice little package and giving it to the user so they can mindlessly use it without knowing what they're doing. So with that, let me fire up a quick demo here. I've got my screen ready to go. What I'm going to focus on here is, just hang on a second and I look at the other screen. What I'm going to focus on here is a quick demonstration, very simple analysis example. And the reason it kind of works is because in one arc I can show you a whole bunch of things without having to spend 25 minutes showing you a full-blown demo. So this is Pyramid's professional experience, lots of things going on, a little bit overwhelming. I click this guy to begin what we call a discovery, and each of these cards represents a data set behind a different database technology. So I'm going to click on this guy over here, just to show you what it looks like a little bit more detail than that. These are all your dimensions and measures and whatnot. Invariably this is what you might be presented with. I'm collapsing it all so that you can imagine someone coming in and not seeing any details whatsoever. They have no access to the meta structure. They're familiar with the data in terms of what's in it, but they don't really know what the hierarchies are called, what the attributes are called. They'll know a little bit about the measures, but might not necessarily get it right. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and trigger a request, and I'm going to do this through speech to text, and let's see if we get this.
Avi, just a second. I can't see your screen yet. I need to make
sure
really? That you're sharing it.
Oh, that's strange. I did that. Let's try it again. Glad you said that.
There
Can
we
go.
See it now? Yeah. Now we
okay. Very good. I don't know why that didn't show up before.
Yep.
All right. So here we go. And I'm going to go ahead now and ask it a little quick question. Again, I'm doing this all with the microphone because, by the way, we discovered that we're talking so much to the machine that we got tired of typing the questions in. We thought, wow, you can really see value now in being able to talk to it rather than having to sit there and type it in. So let's give it a go. All right. Show me revenues by city.
Thinking. This may take a few seconds.
So it's a very simple question, nothing unbelievably profound, but it'll demonstrate
task completed.
An interesting little tweak. So for example, we don't have any revenues in this model. It's called sales. Okay, that's the large language model understanding language and understanding what to do with it. We have something called city here. It went to the entire structure of the database and said, okay, we can find an attribute that best represents city. And after building a query and executing it, the AI understood which is the best visualization for this data set. And sure enough, it's a map because I'm looking at cities, and this is probably the best way to view it. I could have looked at it in a grid or whatnot. It's a very good example of that. Now I'm going to crank up the music and do something a little bit harder. So here we go. All right, I want to focus on cities within 200 kilometers of New York City and have sales over 10,000.
The solution is coming right up.
So this will take it a few seconds for it to crank. By the way, most of the time is the large language model itself trying to make heads and tails of how to resolve it.
It's coming, done and dusted.
And there you go, you get your response. Now this is a fantastic example of a whole bunch of little bits and pieces doing their job. So first of all, it understood that I need to filter, focusing. It understood to do a geospatial distance calculation. This is 200 kilometer radius around New York City. So it found New York City, found it 200 kilometers. And then it understood to look at each of the sales by city and find those that have more than $10,000 worth of sales inside them. When you think about it, that's a very, very simplified way of doing what would probably take me, 5-10 clicks to do. You can still do a point and click in Premiere, you're having to sit there and write code. But as a general arc of analysis, this is very fluid and very easy. And the queries themselves are running in milliseconds, but we're waiting for the large language model to process. And as we see the LLMs improve in speed and performance as it matures, the industry matures, we will see that time drop precipitously. It'll definitely get better. So, and then of course I can hover over things here and get some metrics, and I can see it from over here and so on and so forth. And so by the way, you can see the little filters all triggering here and so on and so forth. Now, where this gets, last thing that makes it a little bit interesting is to do analysis beyond just a query to get something that's going on here. So, yeah, let's look at this one here. You can see I'm pointing at Jersey City. All right. So let me ask you the question. Can you explain why revenues are so high in Jersey City?
Working it out now. I'll be right with you.
So this is now going beyond querying, and it's actually going to do a machine learning exercise, for want of a better term. It's going to drill into the numbers behind that dot.
Hang in there. I'm almost done.
We're hanging. And
the high revenues in Jersey City are predominantly due to bike sales from the product category, which accounts for 95.1% of the sales value, with the United States contributing 91.5% to bike sales.
And you see the story. I'll shut it up so you get the general idea. Now, if you look carefully at that, it's debatable whether it's unbelievably useful or not. Again, this is ML resolving itself on the spot. But you can see that we can start to dive into the numbers and start to get analysis. And if you think about it, this is the segue to Eureka. So not just tell me what happened, but tell me why it happened. And then the follow-up, if you think about it, the sort of the future, the roadmap to that is, okay, what do I do to fix it? If you're going to fix something, the first thing you need to do is understand the problem. And before you understand the problem, you have to find the problem. And that is not a small task on real-world corporate data. And you can see here from sort of the segue, which I went from here to there, to there, to there, to there, how this could ultimately get to the point where we're starting to ask those really, really good questions. That little last step that I did with the insights over here is doing what's called a reverse decision tree segment analysis. And it goes down into the data, pulls up all the relevant information across the entire data set to come up with the most relevant aspects. And obviously it gets it right at times, and sometimes it comes up with something less useful. But you can see the beginning of something profound. And as it gets perfected and improved, we will ultimately be able to do amazing things for people. And then, last comment, the idea would be I never look at this map. I kind of don't ever want to see this thing. I just want to talk to the machine and say, hey, what do I do to fix my revenues in each of the cities around New York? And It just tells me these are the problems, and by the way, we've already sent the memo to all the management of what to do. Crazy, but that's ultimately where we would like to take it.
Wow, this is very, very interesting, Avi. And then I can only imagine companies and people within companies constantly talking to their screens and asking new queries and asking new questions. It will be a very busy work floor.
In the beginning when we started building we've had a chatbot in the product for ages, right? But the questions had to be very refined and couldn't get very complicated. By complex, I mean very long. With the LLMs, we can now write a 3-paragraph message and say, do me this, by that, by this, by that. I wanted this, I wanted that. I don't like. And sometimes I'm typing it there for 15 minutes. If I made a mistake, oh goodness, I have to go back and fix it. And we found that actually the easiest way to get that entire payload in is just talking to the machine. The LLMs themselves do a phenomenal job with understanding what you're saying. They even can work through your spelling and grammar mistakes or your misstatements, and I make lots of them. And the blurriness of your question, it makes a phenomenal job of connecting all the dots. That's the power of the LLM. What the LLM can't do is execute the queries, and it can't understand the data, shockingly. That relies on what we call the robot function, which is in this case is pyramid. And that's what we're doing. So it's a fantastic symbiosis, and that's at the heart of our generative BI solution that we take to market today. That's a very good example of it.
Well, thanks for sharing and thanks for showcasing it. And as you said, well, you're one of the most sophisticated products in the space, definitely against all of the other big behemoths that are out there that most people know about. We've gained quite a lot of traction and attraction from investors who also see the power of and the quality of your solutions. Can you tell us a bit more about what will the future bring for Pyramid Analytics? What is the long-term North Star that you're building towards?
So look, the company obviously. We had a phenomenal, for example, in the last financial year, despite all the chaos in the world, we had a very, very good year last year. I think unofficially, many other companies in our space were rather stagnant. Our business grew double digits, a very high double digit last year in 2023. So we're very, very aggressive on our expectations for the company and for ourselves. And we'd love to see ourselves, IPOing in the market in the near future. That's the company, and I think what you'll see from the product is this tremendous drive towards a very, very high-end functionality. I think AI is easily our number one focus at the moment. It has been anyway for some time, but it will be even more so now as we get more competition from the behemoths, and so you'll see even more profound things coming along. You will see something very interesting from us sometime later this year that'll do the next quantum leap of what you just saw, that I think will really start to make AI and the way I just showed it to you a fundamental, obvious capability that everybody's going to want, rather than a sideshow that looks very cool in demos, but you think, okay, whatever, I'm still going to go back to my usual reports and pie charts and dashboards kind of stuff. You're always going to need those. No one's removing them, and we're big advocates of them anyway. But the next era will be from there too. So I guess the roadmap for Pyramid, company-wise, is up and on. And from the product side, you'll see a tremendous investment and focus on the next era of AI and connecting with all the different large language model technologies that are out there. We have a multi-LLM strategy as part of our game plan. And you will see a lot more around making this real for real people and still being able to ask really complicated questions, all of that working. So that's the big game plan for 24, 25 and beyond.
Thanks for sharing, Avi, and I'm really excited about the new developments in the upcoming future, and I know you are as well. I really enjoyed the conversation, Avi. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for showcasing the platform that you guys have and the value that you can bring to companies. If there's someone listening here wants to learn more, how can they get in contact with you or with Pyramid Analytics as a company?
First of all, they can find us on our website, pyramidanalytics.com. A bit of a long name, but you'll find us there. You can also find me personally on LinkedIn. Just ping me, and we can continue the conversation like that. They can find you, and you can find us. So there's lots of ways of finding each other. But there are many different ways of engaging us, and we'd be very happy to have that conversation on any different tangents that anyone wants to take it. So very happy to engage people. And as well, thank you for your time and this opportunity to share with your viewers and followers a little bit about our product and the company. And we look forward to doing more of this in the future.
Definitely. Yeah, I really enjoyed it as well. And let's do some other episodes and do some other maybe even live events where we can discuss more topics related to generative BI and those types of things. So yeah, thank you, Avi. I hope the listeners also enjoyed it as well. And let's keep pushing. Let's keep working towards the future.
Excellent. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.